Hey, 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 Mark Gassert, Peachtree Corners. I hope you like the background. Trying to be a little festive here. It's that time of year. I am amped to the nth degree. We have a gentleman here tonight. I just don't know. I'm beside myself. I'm like a kid in a candy store. Mr. Scott Goyette of the Go Love Now Foundation. Okay. And let me tell you something real quick about Scott. This was founded in March 2015, and Go Love Now is a movement of empathy, love, compassion that encourages our youth, and we're going to talk about this tonight, to love one another and to celebrate our differences. That is a beautiful statement. And other things he's done, I'm just going to let you know, Scott originated from Peabody, Mass. He's living in Austin now. He's married to a beautiful wife. He has a daughter. And I love this mindful living expert. That's beautiful. And he's a speaker, author, life coach, and he's an educator, primary, secondary education. And we're going to talk about Scott's inspirational programs that he has out there. And I'm getting ready right now. I want to bring the man on himself because you've heard me rant enough. Because, you know, Peachtree Corners is the peachiest place on the planet. But this gentleman right here is totally a class act and a 5+ Peachtree rating. So here he is. Here's the man. Here's Scott.
5+ peaches. That's pretty solid. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you are solid, sir. How do you like being in Peachtree, Corners? Is it pretty sweet? I mean, do you like it? What do you
I'm kind
think?
of liking it. It's a little
Okay.
peach fuzzy, but I like it. I like it. It
Okay.
feels good. Feels
Gotcha.
right.
Scott, we just want to thank you again for joining us because you have so much wisdom to bestow upon us neophytes like myself. And I do have to share something. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here, and
Cool.
it's
Good.
in a good way. I got to read this because this pretty much emulates you in a nutshell. It says, "I'm so lucky to have you as my daddy. Through your love and dedication, you have created a very special family bond. Happy Father's Day." That is awesome. That is investing in mankind. You can't put a price tag on that. How's that make you feel?
Oh, well, actually, you have to remember that's one moment in time too.
Yeah.
As a parent, we know how this works. That's one of those ones I was like, oh, did she say that? It
Of
makes
course,
me feel
now
good.
maybe she's saying other things, right?
She's 14. Of course she
Yeah.
is. Yeah, of course she is. Um, the bottom line is this. One of the things that we do is, and you've mentioned this too with me, if you go look back through social media or follow me in any way, there's a lot of consistency. And when I mess up and I do something wrong, I'm quick to point it out and grow and learn from it. So my daughter sees that. And that's really where, if I were to give one tidbit of parenting advice, is you're going to mess up a ton, admit it, move on, have open communication. A lot of it's not rocket science, but we get stuck in our own old BS. So I'm blessed to have an amazing daughter who allows me to learn and grow with her. And that's really what's happening. It's a two-way growth opportunity, which is great.
We got some people shouting. Scott Rickard saying
Hey,
hello to
Scott.
you.
Scott to
Ra-
Scott.
Randy Chafee, Knuckle Dragger
Of
University. There he is. And you know this gentleman here, the
course.
amplifier of
Randy,
live
Robert,
stream.
all of them.
Robert, yeah, there they are. And they're ready for their questions. I'm sure they'll be coming up. But can you tell, hey, Randy, greetings to you too. Can you tell me what made you start Go Love Now? What was the thought process behind that? Is it something that evolved or you came up with this concept? Because it's really
Yeah.
beautiful what you do with kids and mentor them and help them. So I'll let you run with it, my man.
So you and I are very similar. We're salespeople, and
Mhm.
we've got that gift of gab and that connection. And I think we truly love people. You can see it. Like I can hear when you talk, and I'm sure it's the same thing. It's I don't want to sell you something. I actually just want to hang out with you, and hopefully you buy it, and we can both benefit. That's kind of where the
Right.
salesperson starts. And so from that, I started getting this emptiness. I'd been selling everything you could think of. I was in high tech. I was selling telecommunications, and by all means doing very well. And then I'm sitting there at the top of my wellness mountain. I'm like, I'm doing well. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is it. And then I was in this kind of, oh my God. I'm like, is this it? And I was confused. I was like, okay, so I was supposed to go to school through eighth grade and then high school and then college and then get an MBA and then make so much money, then find a wife, then have a kid, then have the cool stuff. And I'm like, and this is it. And I'm like, this really is it. And I'm like, I was lost. And so, to be honest with you, I partied too much, did a lot of, stupid stuff, and just felt very lost. And one night I wasn't sleeping well. And I guess I wrote down that night, Go Love Now. I bought the domain name and I created two acronyms, the love and the fear model. And so love was listen, observe, voice, and empathize. And that's how we connect to the universe, by embracing love. And the fear model is forgive, eliminate beliefs, needs and programming that's no longer serving you, and then accepting yourself and others where you are there at in the journey, and then finally rising up and being resilient. So those came to me from something, that I would call source, you might call God. It was literally connected to the universe. And I experienced that conduit of infinite wisdom. And then I asked myself, why am I not coming here all the time? But I didn't really know how I got there. So that was kind of the beginning of unintentional meditation, really starting to connect deeply to source. So I think that was spoon fed to me. That, I mean, really think about where we're at now. Someone just gave to me, or some source gave to me, two models that get us to use fear as a springboard to find love. I mean, that's pretty powerful, and we need that more
Right.
than ever. So I essentially jumped out of the sales arena, kind of still do some consulting, and I still do some stuff with sales consulting, but it's really based now on the love and the fear model. It's being a great human being, connecting to source, doing things for the right reason. And because of that, you end up doing well in anything you do, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether
Right.
it's, doesn't matter. So,
And that's a great point, because trust, help, care. I mean,
yeah.
as a salesperson, that's something I always, in the back of my mind, when I go to talk to you, am I conveying that message to these people? And
Mhm.
people can read that, as you well know, and kids can pinpoint a phony, you know,
Oh
a
God, yeah.
mile away in a heartbeat. They're looking for authenticity. I do have to share, there's a couple more. This gentleman right here, JR,
Hey, Joe.
Arsenal, he is a very cool individual. He is a creative photographer. He's he's written some books. Very astute person. He's been through life. He is an older person. I kid about this. There's some baby boomers out here, Scott. So I hope you don't get offended. You know, they're actually going to
Mm.
check you out. But JR is a guy. He has a program too, and I know eventually he may even want to talk to you sometime. Do you know this gentleman here, Jonathan Castro?
Hey, Jonathan, I do not think I do. He might have jumped on Chris Rye's show, but it's great
Okay.
to be introduced to him.
There's Robert, you know, accelerating it, you know, making it happen. And look at that, you know, he has to get cool. Jr. Feliz Navidad. Okay,
Feliz
so
Navidad.
very cool. But when you did this, did you think it would take off, Scott? I mean, like, I always ask people this question: when you've said, "Okay, I want to go talk to a group of people," what was running through your mind at that point in time? Like, you're like, was it fear of failure? Were there a lot of things going through your mind? You remember the first time you gave a speech with Go Love Now and you were in front of people? And do
Mhm.
you remember that day?
Oh yeah, it's nothing's changed. It's the same. I get in front of. It's the same feeling I feel even when I get on here right now. One of the things that a lot of people do is they speak, and in speaking, they're talking from their mind. And so my mind is coming with everything that I perceive, I've learned from books, from experience. And one of the things that drives me crazy about always speaking from here and not from heart is, do I even really believe it? Am I even confident that what I'm speaking is truth? Or was it something that was passed on to my identity from the schooling system? And I've never really thought critically about whether it's true or not. So whether it's Go Love Now or coming here now, one of the things I really do before I ever get in front of a group of people is I meditate, and I really try to speak from the heart. So I don't know if you can recognize that, but if you listen to me when I'm talking to you, I don't want to say like, this is right, this is wrong, I know something, maybe you don't. I want you to feel what I'm feeling with me, and then we can interpret whether it's right or wrong. So the first time I went in, my biggest fear was, am I giving them a tool that's worthwhile? Am I giving them an opportunity to become better and empowering them, or am I giving them more fluff? And that was the scariest thing for me is this really coming from source? Am I identifying this right? Is this something they need or I think they need? And until I saw that they definitely needed it and could use it, that was the scariest thing for me. Does that make sense?
No, no, that is well put, well put. Because you kiddingly inside while you were saying, as I speak, when I talk to somebody and we sell virtually, am I nervous? Yes. Hell
Oh
yes,
yeah.
I am. I mean, because I'm concerned, am I getting my message across? Is this something of value? Can I truly help this person? I
Yeah.
said I can, and I'm hoping that I will, but is it coming across? Am I conveying that message? And you and I shared backstage when you're dealing with kids, and kids are sharper than razor blades. I mean, they are tremendous. They are very astute. They can spot phonies a mile away, as
Oh
I
yeah.
kiddingly say. And I'm involved. And the reason I applaud you for what you do is I am involved as an umpire. I umpire some youth games, so I get to deal with kids and I get to see the horror of a kid striking out and his dad going off on him. And,
Mhm.
how do you help kids overcome things of that nature? I mean, like that's one negative, or, you have youth empowerment or bullying, like there's a lot of bullying out there too. Kids can be very, very mean to one another. How do you deal with that, Scott?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Um, there's, of course, there's no simple single answer to that, but I will start by saying this. I'm always preaching to everybody that there's two types of rewards in life. There's intrinsic and extrinsic. And intrinsic, of course, comes from pride of job, well done. I'm doing it because I want to find my brilliance and bring that to the world. Extrinsic is, do I get the good grade? Do I get the reward? Do I graduate? All the things that come from the outside in. I feel like so many people are seeking outside approval. I don't feel like it. I think we all know it. I mean, we see people addicted to the internet. They want to get their likes and their dopamine hits and their rushes. Right now, in one sense, we might be like, oh, who showed up? Who's here? Is it exciting? Do we have enough people? Oh, I wish we had more. But here's the deal. We're not, or we shouldn't be, bringing these messages with the anticipation that 1,000 people need to hear them. Every opportunity we get to share our brilliance, we need to embrace it. So by me practicing what I'm preaching, whether it's here to 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, it doesn't matter. I'm going to bring that from my heart. So by me saying that in front of, we had 2,700 kids at one of the high schools. That's a weird time because they don't want to listen to you. They really don't. I'm some random person in there and I've got to immediately entertain them and be funny. Then I've got to immediately do something like dance to have, they were like, all right, he's cool. And I got to make sure I say the right words. So that authenticity, because I'm sharing my brilliance and I'm clearly motivated from within, they respond and they're like, I want what he's having. And then I teach them what I'm having is my own intrinsic reward, that I'm doing this for the job well done. I'm present. I'm in this moment. I'm in love with this message and in love with you guys because I want to see you succeed. Once a group starts to think like that and they're not so worried about, does this person like me or this person like me, bullying is a byproduct of that. The bullying that we're seeing is because people aren't getting that extrinsic value. Their parent at home isn't giving them love. They're not getting love. The teacher failed them because they don't feel smart, because this dynamic of teaching isn't working for them. So to address bullying specifically and say like, stop bullying, or here's a way to get out of bullying, is very temporary. And what we need to do is infiltrate the systems, teach self-love, teach the importance of being rewarded intrinsically. Once we start doing that, our brilliance shines, and then bullying will actually fade away. So it's a systemic thing. It's not a, and let's face it
Right.
too, how many times does the bully have more problems? And I don't want to say this, not more problems, as many, if not different problems than the bullied. I mean, they're not bringing it to this kid to be a jerk. They're responding to their own environment. So we have to address it as a whole. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, that is excellent. Well stated. And I do have to share somebody here. I know you know this gentleman. I call him the pride of Eastlake, Benjamin Franklin Gay III. To me, that is the coolest name. He is an Atlanta boy. Uh, Ben, in his books, he's been around for quite some time. He had Zig Ziglar work for him at one point in time. I won't get
Nice.
into all that, but a lot of wisdom from Ben when you read what he's published. He has these books called Closers One, Two, Three. I said, when are you going to do four, five, six? But his approach, when I talk with him, it's not I'm here, you're here. It's just a conversation. And it's not like you're even being sold. He's just talking to you about things. And I kid with Ben because he is a Southerner. They can tell a story, believe me. So don't ever ask Ben an open ended question because he'll go a country mile, as they say. But that's what's kind of neat about it. And what you're talking about with kids, you give them some hope because the bullying thing is really big these days. And, like you look fat in that, or you look like an idiot, or what are you trying, you can't do this. And it's just can be so crippling and debilitating. And I've talked to adults and they've shared some things with me that when they were kids, what their parents told them, or you'll never do this or that, or it's kind of like my son Teddy. He is playing college football. Do you know he was told he wouldn't be able to play high school football? So, and he's a quarterback. So, hey, and my hat goes off to him, and I have a lot of respect for him because he's a grinder, and he just put in the effort and worked. So, and the other thing I was going to ask you though, and this is one of the things I want to talk just briefly on suicide prevention. Have you had to deal with that, Scott? I mean, have you talked to kids, or how do you know what the telltale signs are? I mean, that is so tough.
So we've had a few of these issues, positive mostly, but we've had people come to us after the program. The first time this happened, we were at a school, juniors and seniors. I think there were 1,200 people in this big auditorium, and one of the girls comes up after and hugs me and the speaking partner that I had with the Go Love Now team at the time. And I didn't think much of it. I just thought, like, going through the motions, like it's one more person to give a hug to. And this was pre-COVID, so we were allowed to do all that. And I just decided I had to follow up and like figure out, like, well, it just felt a little bit different. So I walked up to one of the counselors and she runs over. She goes, "You don't understand what just happened. This girl had a note and everything at home. She was going to kill herself today and decided not to because of what you guys said." And that's one of these, like, holy crap, like, oh my God, I got to really watch my words. What if I didn't say the right thing? Or did I say something that
Right.
somebody else made a decision because we didn't say it right? And I'm like, oh, I don't even want to be up here anymore. And I'm like, holy crap. And I was like, I don't know if I was happy, sad, stressed. I just felt this, like, this is a real thing. And so since then, we've had those things happen multiple times. If somebody's come up, I've talked to kids after, and like, I'll give you an example of one. One kid came up and he's like, again, I'm not a trained psychologist.
No.
My training is probably very similar to yours. It's just very deeply connected to humans. And so this kid comes up to me and he said, "My dad's an alcoholic and he's dying of cancer and he's going through all this stuff. And he's like, I don't want to live. And he went through this." And I said, and I had to respond quick. And I just said, "Well, let me ask you a question." I'm like, what lessons do you think we can learn from this? Because life is all about lessons. This kid's like 14. And he ended up saying to me, he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you this. Right now, you're angry at your dad. You're turning that anger toward yourself. And you're saying, why me? Let me ask you a question. What if your dad wasn't an alcoholic? I mean, as being an alcoholic, wasn't dying of cancer, wasn't going through all these things. What do you think might happen?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "What would happen if he was an alcoholic but wasn't dying of cancer? What do you think you might become?" He goes, "An alcoholic." I go, "There you go." And I go, "And you told me he was violent." I go, "Do you think maybe you would take on the violence?" And he goes, "Probably." And I'm like, "So what's going to happen now?" And all of a sudden he's like this. And I'm like, "So if your dad doesn't make it, what's happening?" And he's like, "The cycle's ending." And he said it. I didn't say it. And I'm like, "So the greatest gift that could be given that you can't process just yet is the fact that this cycle is going to end and life doesn't make sense sometimes. And I can't offer you that. But you recognizing that this is where it ends, this is huge." And since then, that guidance counselor said, I don't know where that came from, but you have no idea what that did. And I don't know where that's what I'm saying. I don't think from here. I stop and I'm like, talk through,
Right.
say something, because like I don't know what to say to this kid, and it just came out, and it's an intense feeling to watch those situations unfold and see that kid go from like angry and he's lashing out and why me to holy crap, this is the way the world works and this is the only way it was going to stop. And I guess he was also going back and saying to his dad, like, I love you and I understand what's happening. And so it's amazing. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't know how to say like to do one thing either, because it's never one thing. Every single one of these situations is very individual and reactive from my heart.
Right. That is something I can tell you I have, and what you're talking about, like even with parents on their kids in baseball, they never want them to strike out. And finally, after a game, I was behind the plate. I had to go up to this dad and I said, "Do you think your son comes up here with the intent purpose to strike out?" He doesn't. So here's some advice. I have two sons that played this game. Just relax and encourage them. But I've seen one dad actually take his son, he was like 14, and jacked him up in the dugout. It was, I had to turn away. I mean, I couldn't get involved with it. I wanted to, but, it was just one of those moments. And I was like, wow, I just couldn't believe what I was watching and witnessing. My jaw dropped over, striking out. That's incredible. I mean, that's so much pressure you put on a kid that,
Yep.
and then you wonder why sometimes kids are thinking about suicide, or it's crazy stuff. But I do want to share a couple comments. Let's
Hey,
see.
Dennis.
There's one here, and I'm going to get up here. Yeah, here it is. It's Randy. He says, "Huge appreciation, Scott, for what you do."
Thank you, sir.
JR, here's a guy you need to get to know again. Bullies usually run in groups. They usually cowardly, one on one. They run in packs like jackals. That's well put. I like JR. He's
I like
another
it.
thinker. And then Robert says, I just have to share. Most of the time, the bullies are trying to ease their pain.
100%.
You know,
100%. I
and
I could tell you more on stories, and when you peel back
oh
the onion, these people, yeah. I mean, I've got one. This girl was a huge bully. Believe it or not, it was a girl. She was in a middle school. She was the toughest person in the school. She had stayed back twice, so she was like 16, in eighth grade. A
right,
strong, bigger girl, and she was literally like a nightmare. And I ended up finding her an opportunity to interview, because I guess she always wanted to be a TV reporter, and I got her to interview the coach for the D League for the San Antonio Spurs here in Austin,
oh
and I
wow,
got her that opportunity. She went back and became a true champion of Go Love Now, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes like this. She goes, "Man, you are lit." And I had to turn to the principal. I'm like, "Is she swearing at me?" And they're like, "No, that's a good thing." And I go, and I'm like, "Thank you, Perla." And it was the funniest thing because I didn't even know. I'm like, I'm learning the lingo. I'm like, "Oh, it was a good thing." I'm
right,
like,
right. Oh, he's on hold. Hold it. Everybody stay put. He'll come back. He's frozen. But Tim, thank you for your comment. He'll come back. And Robert again. Everybody's saying hello. We will get him back. We'll see what's going on here. That's the neat thing about going live, everybody. You never know what's going to happen next. And I'm sure Scott will figure it out. But while I'm on this subject, he was talking about suicide. I can share you a true story. I don't know if I want to mention the person's name, but I will tell you it's in this area, up the road in Johns Creek. And he had a son, and he was in high school. Yeah, he's going to reconnect with me. Um, and how would you like to find your son hanging on the back of your door? There's a book out on it. It's called The Will to Live. And the gentleman's name, actually, John Troutwine, was a ex-Boston Red Sox pitcher. John wasn't in the majors that long, but what a man he is. He's a very, very successful businessman in the Johns Creek area. Great family, good guy. And look, Scott's coming back. We lost him, but he's back. So I kind of picked up where you left off. Can I?
tell me what you said. Tell me. Yeah, I don't.
Well, I was talking about. Yeah, I was talking about things that you were dealing with bullying, and I said we touched on suicide, and I mentioned John Troutwine just briefly. That
Okay.
is one person I'd like to have on. Actually, I need to get him to know you as well because he has it's called Will to Live. He's written a book. Joe Girardi wrote the foreword to it because John, like I said, played for the Sox.
Yeah.
Great guy, down to earth, and he was instrumental with my boys as they were little, and that's why I shared that story before, the show. And when he saw my son, my oldest Jacob, I mean, he just hugged him, and that was real hard for me because, I got choked up because, he said, "My God, you're a man. Look at you. You're looking great." Like I told you, and it dawned on me, John's son isn't here you know. And he talked to the baseball team, and that's hard to deal with. What's amazing about John is his positive attitude through it all. That's why I want to talk to him. And we all like what you're doing right now with kids. I know 2020 COVID, and you've had to deal with it. I've had to deal with it, and look what you're doing now. I mean, I know you're used to being on stage, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you picked up this medium and virtual, and here
Yeah.
we are doing the thing.
Yeah.
And I know you can't wait for it to where you can get up on a stage and engage with people.
Of
I mean,
course.
I
Of
miss
course.
that. It's
Of
nice
course.
to talk face to face. But look at all the friends we've made through this, Scott. I
We
mean,
pivot quick and find the opportunity. I just want to share one thing. If this does go off again, I've never had my computer do it. It blue screened and it just started going like this weird thing. So
okay.
hopefully it's a one off. But if it does it again, keep saying good stuff and I'll try to get back.
Okay, no
So
worries. No worries. Maybe it's adjusting to Peachtree Corners, my man.
I think it's finishing off 2020. I mean, I've
Right.
noticed like I'm a big believer in the idea of like energy, between us and between our electronics. And honestly, maybe, like going back to that moment, recalling that literally could shut that computer down. I'm not even kidding. Because
Facebook's monitoring us. Look out.
or
Big
that,
brothers
or that.
big brothers out there, Scott.
There you
But
go.
what I wanted to ask you then too is how do you engage, like you're dealing with kids, and then how do you get the parents involved to buy into this? Because how does that work? I mean, explain that to us.
Yeah, and that's so let's back up for a second too, because right now, Go Up Now actually kind of was put on hold for COVID, but other reasons too. So here's one of the biggest issues that we face. Okay, if I go give a young person hope, or I empower them to find their hope, and I hand them a tool, and then that tool or that hope gets squelched, that's one more time that child gets abandoned. So let's say that this child has a single parent or somebody's in prison or something happened that's already affecting their home life, and then they find hope, and then that gets knocked down. A kid can only take so much of that before they shut down and they do bully or sell drugs or get in fights or whatever their defense mechanism is. And one of the things I found really disheartening is going to some of these schools that, first of all, the parents are unintentionally keeping the cycle going, and no fault of their own. I mean, they need to get out of victim status and make shifts, but they're doing their best with what they have. So I can't get into their home. If I have a program in certain districts and invite the parents, 2 out of 1,000 come. There's nothing
Really?
you can do to change that. You can give them free food, then 50 come. But the thing is, they're really only coming, they're not fully there. So there has to be a workaround. Now, here's the other problem. We're working with trauma. When I'm talking to a kid saying you've got to love yourself more, there's trauma that's going to come up. So if the teacher of this student has never managed their trauma and is in there teaching as a trauma response, because many teachers teach because they say that'll never happen to another kid, so I'm going to defend against it. Well, you know how you defend against something? You become the brilliance and let that kid see it, and then will become it. You don't teach it without becoming it. And I don't want to say there's way too many teachers who have never managed their trauma. So when I go in and I look around the room, what we do, we make people laugh, we make people cry. I mean, I'm taking you on a roller coaster. The
Right.
teachers are often looking the other way, trying not to cry because they're worried if the kids are looking, and they don't know how to respond. And then when the kids say, "Hey, I want more of this," they're like, "Well, we have to get back to math," and they're scared of it. So
Hmm. That's
How do you
interesting.
get, yeah, and of no fault of their own. So here's how this needs to work. And this is where we're going to have to rebuild this framework. It almost has to be a secret society of the kids healing the parents. And so what you need is you need a champions group. So you take the leaders who are unintentional leaders, whether it's for good or for bad. So you take the girl I was talking about who's in fights every day, who's calling out racial slurs to another group. You take that girl and say, you're powerful, you're amazing, I see you, you're talented, you're appreciated, let me help you. And you elevate her, and they see the shift in her and they say, holy crap, and they want to become her. And so we've got to be creative in-house of creating a group that we call champions, aka student leaders, and they need to do it. We can't put the onus on adults ever again, because here's the deal: if you're an adult and you haven't done your work yet, very few. I mean, do you know how hard it is to get people to
Yes.
sign up for my coaching? Honestly,
Yeah.
there's no one who's ever come into coaching with me ever who hasn't walked out and said, holy crap, why haven't I done that before? Ever. No one. So why aren't people doing it? Because they're horrified. And kids don't know how to come in and do it. So it's literally a struggle to bring people
Right.
on board to do what's best for them. So to answer your question, find me that answer and let's make a lot of money off that answer,
Right.
because it's a struggle. And I think a lot of it really has to come from making the kids, empowering them to be so strong with these tools, almost kind of like don't tell your parents in a weird way. And I don't mean that, but something like that, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. No, it absolutely does. And that's what I
And it's
thought you
sad.
you were going to go, because my wife's being an educator, and I watch her, Scott,
Yeah.
work diligently and work harder than she's ever worked before, because now she's using Microsoft Teams or go to
Hmm.
meetings, and now you have consultations. Now you have a language barrier with some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters. The parents, don't speak English that well, so they have to have someone to translate, and it's tough,
Yeah.
and the work's not getting done. You know what I'm saying? So some of these
100%.
kids are, and you see it, I know you do, and they're going to be left behind. But
Yeah.
yet they'll promote them, and that's my next question. So what's now? What's new? What's next with public or private education? Where do you think we're going? Because some of the schools around Gwinnett County where I live, my wife's going to have to go back at least 2 days out of the week once the new year kicks in. But I don't know how that's going to work. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to bring back one thing before we jump in this question, if we're
Uh-huh.
cool with that.
Sure. Cool.
You said something that I want to bring up. So culturally, and this is, you've got some people and they're listening right now that are creative people. We need to take that creativity and start working to comfort people culturally to get excited about education. I'm going to tell you something that we did when I was in graduate school, getting my MBA. I was the only person on the university council, so who's a student, and so I was the student rep, and it's a bunch of the president and certain like high powered people, whatever. But we were voting on important decisions to make in the school and coming up with ideas. And my favorite idea I ever came up with was they were talking about there were only 60% of Hispanics who were attending the school who graduated within 5 years. 6%.
Wow.
And so they kept saying, well, we got to work harder in high school and make sure they're, getting trained in the cores. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? And they're like, well, that's what it is. They're failing the cores. I'm like, you're serious? And I'm like, you understand what's happening here, right? Like, you don't see this? And they're like, it's the cores. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's cultural, dude. I'm like, are we really having like this is thank God you have a student in here. I'm like, here's what I think you need to do. And I'm guessing on this. I have a feeling that a kid comes out as a first generation college student and you're watching this come out. The parents now think they're an alien. So they're saying, why is your brother and sister home working and you think you can go off gallivanting and then come back home like you're a superstar? They don't see it as adding value to the family. I said, here's what I would do. I would do the cheapest thing you can do. When you invite that kid to come to school here and say you're accepted, say the Garcia family on behalf of Jose has been accepted into the college, and invite the family to see what's happened, see how this is going to strengthen the family, because everything's about the family. And the minute you do that, And I know they took some of those things on board, and I'd love to say that I'm probably the reason that all that happened. But
Right.
I know that a lot of people's eyes open like, oh, and I'm like, so the people who are making all the money here are still saying the same old BS. And the people who are really understanding how to make the difference on the ground and looking in people's eyes and saying, why are you resisting this? That's what we need more of. We need connectors, humans. And so to answer the next question, what do people do now with school? I almost feel like you don't go back in a hybrid model. I think we wait till we've got the
Okay.
vaccine and we all go in. I think this half model stuff is absolutely stupid because I want to take that back a tiny bit. In an instance where somebody has no option but to send their kid to school, so it's doubling his daycare and you're in a financial issue, I
Right.
fully get it. And if there has to be, if we have to do that, we have to do it. But wherever there's an option, it's better to do virtual. Now, what I think would be smart is because some of the teachers are concerned too. Maybe we do it virtual, so we're getting those kids out of the home, so they have a place to study. Maybe we bring them, to a gym and there's a monitor, but they're
Right.
still like using Zoom or something. So we're still working against COVID. But I fully do get what you're saying. Kids aren't getting their breakfast or their lunch. They're in an environment where they can't study. There's too many people in one apartment. There's an abusive parent there. So we have to shift that dynamic. But the minute we do these hybrids, now you have, like you said, there's double the work on the teacher. They're not teaching quality. They're passing kids because it's easier because they're already stressed out. I
Right.
mean, it's not an easy time. We need to revamp the educational system where we're teaching kids emotional intelligence and how to truly fall in love with themselves. And we need to guide them to find their genius and their brilliance. The gentleman, and I can't see that well, but I know he had two letters was his name. You said he's
Jr.
an artist, JR. So
Jr.
you've got JR as an artist. You said that he's a great
Photographer.
photographer.
Yes. Yes.
So he took that art, and I'd almost bet money because we all heard it. You're not going to make any money with that. That's not a profession when we were kids. I love when I see older folks who are owning their creativity. We need to figure out ways to teach kids to find their brilliance. And if it's something creative, it's something hands-on, kinesthetic, whatever it is, we need to guide them there quickly. We need to make them fall in love with themselves. And that needs to come before any of this other stuff. That's the solution to all of this, and it has to be implemented yesterday. So,
Hey, you want to come to Gwinnett County and get them straight? Or...
man, you and your wife, I know if we sat and talked, the answer to that is the system. It's still the
Yes.
politics.
Yes.
Well, we can't do that because it's just all BS. This is the way we've been doing it, so we're gonna have to do it this way. And I'm like, and you can't see where that's gotten you.
Right.
So
Hey, I do want to share, Scott. We have there's a question or two, so I got to pop these up.
cool.
But Robert says, yes, exactly. That this is why I became the example of the behavior I wanted to see in the audience of those who inspire me. Their live streams, which includes channeling the right energy back to those doing the giving. That is cool. Robert, always the deep thinker. I call him my accelerator. And then you have Kenny Mayberry. What is a good way to get the kids excited about education? He's just asking now, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's a business person, but that's an open ended question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you might know. How do you get them excited?
I mean, a great question to ask a kid is, what do you like?
Right.
What, just ask them what excites you. And, a 14-year-old girl is going to go, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And we know
Sounds
we've
like
all
my
been
two boys back in the day. If
there.
I got a grunt or two, I knew they were okay. You know.
And then what you do though, and this is what you do long enough, you just say, hey, do you want us to take you to Michael's? Do you want us to go to the sports store? Do you want us to whatever? One of the things we figured out, well, I'll tell you, this might answer part of the question. So I was studying human design, and human design, if you guys are familiar, it's this ancient, I believe it was Egyptian, and it's this numerology thing that's based on your birthday, and you tell a lot about a person. So this is interesting. I went, and because I thought I was being a good parent and teaching responsibility, we used to tell Kayla, you can do dance, but you have to do it for the 3 months that we pay for. You can do softball, but you got to do it for the 3 months of the season. You can do this. Well, here's something very interesting. One of the reasons that we have the tendency to push kids and then they fail in our eyes is we don't understand their construct of who they are. My daughter is somebody who can understand what she likes very quickly. So she only needs the 1 day trial. And I think like, no, 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 you got to spend a little time. I learned a lot about her through this human design that the minute she tries it, she's like, nope. And she knows. So what happened was we were putting her in things thinking we're being great parents, saying you got to finish this. So she wouldn't try anything else. We did this human design and then we started doing like day passes to stuff and she found everything she loves. She's an artist, she's a roller skater, she's a chef, and she's phenomenal. And I would have failed. I would have failed as a parent because think about it. These are the things I was talking about earlier when I was saying to eliminate those programming of beliefs. My belief is a winner always sticks to what they started. A winner. And where did that come from? The coach, the
Yeah,
parent trying their
right,
best, doing a good
right,
job,
right,
but they were actually doing a disservice. Now, to me, that works. To my daughter, I would have crucified her and she would have had her head down
right.
indefinitely. So to start answering that question, how do you help them find that? I think you got to understand what kind of person they are. So if you notice that maybe your son or daughter's that person, maybe say, would keep asking them, what do you want? And always support it. Even I'm an athlete. I want my daughter to play basketball, volleyball. I want to teach her. She wants to roller skate and she wants to design stuff. Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to support her 1,000%. But again, if you don't figure out her personality, then you're both going to fail. And what do we get from JR?
He said, yeah, JR's funny. 30 state business someday, it will all shake out. You guys are too kind. But I mean, he is a master photographer. He
That's
graduated
awesome.
graduated like top of his class back in the day, and he's even written books on cameras design. I mean, I could get into it, but I won't. I'll embarrass him. I'm sorry, JR. But
But he
he's
must love it or he wouldn't.
yeah,
See, that's the
he
thing. I
does.
mean, like
He
he's in
does.
it. I love
Yes.
seeing that. I
he
love
he has more gear than Carter has liver pills, to coin a phrase.
I remember
He,
those jokes.
that's an oldie. But
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, man, you are so deep, man. I mean, God, can we get you like to talk to some of these educational institutions as far
Help
as
me.
the
Help me
yeah?
get there.
I mean, my goodness. Um, but you mentioned like how you create the environment. I have to ask. So everybody has a process, whether it's strategic, unintentional. But what do you do? What does Scott Goyette do to say, okay, this is what I need to do to get? I know you mentioned meditating. This is what I need to do. Do I meditate, read, write? Just go somewhere quiet and think about things. How do you start your day and pursue your dreams, goals, aspirations? How do you approach that?
It's a great question, and I think that there's no flawless answer to this. Even mine is mine, and that's something people got to realize. So I'm a big fan of routine, and I don't think that we could find somebody who's successful at any level who's not a big fan of routine. They might not even know they have a routine, but when they look back, they're like, I do. So I'm a big fan of meditation. I love jumping in cold pools and then going to a hot sauna. I've got all my physical. What I put in my body is, especially now, I'm on a very clean phase, input, output. So I'm eating super clean.
Mhm.
The connection, like with meditation, I'm always dabbling in new ways to do it. And I'm a big fan of meditation in the moment, where one of the things I really like to do is when I'm talking to somebody is just look at them a different way, like really start. I'm literally meditating in everything I do. And I'm not kidding. I'll be
Wow.
at Whole Foods and I'm just kind of sitting there connecting with somebody. And I'm like, I'm going to ask a different type of question and just stare at them and just see if I can see the aura. Or I'm going to, and I'll literally start doing this. So I'm always I'm always in practice and I'm
Mhm.
really enjoying connection. I'm really enjoying embracing and saying like, I mean, think of this, all right? I'm not a religious person, but I know one of the things, in Christianity is God the homeless person on the corner who's just saying, how will you treat me? And then you see him at the gates I love embracing that concept. I love seeing everybody saying, I've walked by this person 20 times, and if we're in a world of lessons, why have I not stopped to embrace this lesson? And then just sit and give them something and talk to them. Or that's what I'm doing. So that's my routine. My routine is what am I missing? While I'm on autopilot, what am I missing? What am I walking by every day? It's kind of like imagine this world ends Okay. And all of a sudden you're sitting up there and you realize it was a video game, and all like the opportunity to reach the highest level was next to you the whole time, but it wasn't packaged in the gold that you wanted. So it's all there and you're like, I am so stupid. So go through
Right.
life, change your routine now to look at all the things that didn't seem obvious, because the golden nugget of wisdom isn't with you and I here right now. It's that homeless person. It's the person at Whole Foods. It's, the person in the old age home who's in the bed next to your grandfather when you go to visit him, you ask his story. That's where it's coming from. So your routine is to break out of your autopilot routine. And that starts with connecting to source through meditation. That starts with shaking yourself up so that you're vibrating at a higher level, so that you're ready to find these golden nuggets that have been sitting around you. I'm telling you, it's all right
No.
here.
Yeah.
It's
And
all right here.
that is so profound, and I can relate to that because when my father was in hospice and I spent a week with him, I stayed in the room, and you get to talk and all that, and you find out a lot of different things, and it does. My dad had a saying that as tough as he was, when one man closes his eyes, another will open his, and I didn't understand that till now. This is the moment, and now this is what he was talking about, or things that would happen to me. I said, "You knew this was going to happen, didn't you?" He said, "Yes. We all go through this, Mark. We all struggle." And, whether it's financial, marital, whatever the case may be out there. And that's why I always say what you and Chris do on your Friday night thing. I always kiddingly say this, and people, because of the Orthodox faith, the priest says, "Wisdom, let us be attentive." And there is some truth to that. When you're hearing wisdom, be attentive, and listen, and pay attention to what's going on around you. And I think we're guilty of the routine. And you brought up a great point, Scott. This is that time of year where I don't know. I have that fear of one day being alone by myself for Christmas or a holiday, or you know, and that's just all part of the life process. And there are people right now that are going to be by themselves on Christmas, and some will have their health, some won't, and it's just something we all got to deal with.
And that's another interesting point too, because let's just, like, right now from the outside looking in, that sounds horrible because we're in our moment right now. But who's to say? No, this is, one of the things that Chris and I have people do in our coaching program.
I love
Live in
that.
the
Live
now. Yeah, of
now. Yeah,
course.
that's good,
Present.
Ronnie Goodwin. Yeah,
100%. But
yeah.
Chris and I are, one of the first things we do is we have people write their eulogy because we want to them to see that trajectory and see where they're going. So here's my thought. If I'm sitting there alone at that point, if I already know what I know now, and it's enough that I feel like I would know that just part of the process to get to the next space, then maybe that's just a time for me to do some real deep meditation and maybe, kind of just declutter, just go through some stuff. We see it as horrible now because, like, in the now, you don't want that, but you don't have that
Right,
now. You don't have that
right.
now. So it's one of those things where you're like, if I ever lost my wife, or I ever, one of my motivational speaking partners lost his eldest son, his first son, and he lost him to cancer. And every time he'd tell that story, I'm crying, the crowd's crying, we're all crying. And the more I'd hear it, though, the more I was like, maybe I could get through that. And like, but I don't want to think about it. You know what I mean? Maybe I could, because I'm watching him and I'm seeing his strength, and I'm literally watching him channel Freddie Jr. And I'm watching the whole process, and I'm like, it's just something I don't understand. And I don't wish that on anybody, but I watched him able to take his situation and figure out how to
Right.
respond and not react and manage it. And honestly, just like I told that one young kid about his dad, every time Freddie would tell me his story, I almost feel like maybe Freddie was on a pathway to destruction and his son literally sacrificed him for the greater good of the rest of the family. I don't, you never want to fully say that, but as I'm listening, I'm almost saying, you know it, you see what happened here. Like, you see what happened. This is a crazy, horrific situation, but the
Right.
world worked to say this cycle ends right now. And it's, again, there's stuff that when you start to get way back as an observer and you watch it, you start to go, wow, it's a really good point. Would this have ever ended? Like the train has to hit you so damn hard that the lesson ends, and you're like, but did you have to take the guy's son? And then you
Right.
start looking at the lineage, going, maybe you did. And that sounds insane. So will we be sitting alone in a nursing home? Maybe.
Yeah.
And at that
Yeah.
moment, that's going to be what's supposed to happen in that moment.
Sure. Sure. I wanted to share this with you. JR said he was a young soldier. I won't tell you how long ago this was, Scott, overseas in a remote area, alone in the holidays. No fun. So he served. Thank you, JR, for your service.
Thank
And
you.
that was a few moons ago for JR. But that's what I'm saying. We all go through things. And it always brings me up to my favorite subject. Since I love baseball, I'm going to ask you this, that 3-2 moment in your life. It's full count. Did you have one? Some people call it the aha moment. I call it the 3-2 full count moment. Did you have one in your life, Scott, that it
Yeah.
just kind of you transition, like it's like you're outside your body saying, "Wake the hell up. This is what you're supposed to be doing," or "Get with it," or could you explain?
Yeah. There's two. There's two, and they were both dynamic shifts. And one's beautiful and one's not so beautiful. But both were the best 2 moments of my life. The first one, I'm 19 years old. Life was perfect. I'm playing college sports. Everything's just rolling. You got the pretty girlfriends. Life is easy. I'm in the best shape of my life. I sit down on a table, and there was newspaper on this table. It turns out this table was glass. It shatters. An 8-inch piece of glass goes under some really important parts of me. I bled out. I lost more than half my blood. My
Oh
heart
wow.
stopped. Heart stopped. I'm not supposed to live.
Oh
They
wow.
told me that my parts wouldn't work. I would never have a kid. They said, you're never going to play competitive sports again. And I had an amazing surgeon who came in from Mass General, because I was in Boston at the time, fixed my
Right.
stuff up. Everything worked out. I've got a daughter. So thank you. Thank you for that fantastic work. I played football a couple years later. I played basketball only 4 months later.
Did you
So I
play in
just in
college?
college, and,
Okay.
and 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 I was starting. Like, I was actually like playing at
Oh
a
wow.
very competitive level. I said, this will not stop me. And I was just one of these, you can't stop me. And so instead of taking that egoic mentality that I'm better than somebody, I said, holy crap, I am blessed. And I saw it in a different light. Now, I did, of course, I got it, but I didn't fully process it. You know what I mean? I got
Right.
through those phases where you still do stupid stuff, but in the back of my mind, I was massively appreciative, and I lived in a place of gratitude. The next one was the more beautiful moment, was the birth of my daughter. Sold my motorcycles, stopped doing drugs, stopped drinking. I stopped doing everything that was hurting me for the most part. It probably took me
Right.
2 years to fully stop everything. But when I looked in her eyes and I was like, I'm going to do all the right things, massive, massive, massive shift. And it was an easy one for me. It's like, people are like, why do you stop this? Why do you stop this? That is when I said, oh, I understand my why. And my why wasn't her. My why was all of her, all over the world, all of the kids being born. I saw in her that there's kids who need these messages that you're preaching and not practicing enough. And instantly I'm like, again, it probably took like 2 years. You make it sound pretty in the story. It probably took a little migration, but it got there. So
So now that she's 14, I mean, what does she think of you,
let me go
Scott,
get her.
Dad?
So I'll probably go get her.
Dad, and when you're doing your thing, I mean, how does she feel about what you do?
Exactly what you would think as a parent. Anybody who's listening who's a parent is going, she gets it, she loves you, but she pretends she doesn't listen to you. And she's like, Dad, you're always saying the same stuff. So exactly what you would think. And a
And you're just
wonderful,
dad, you know.
100%, 100%. And again, the cool thing is, she sees all the mistakes and, the things. The best thing about having a kid, and like you said, that they see through the BS, is they're going to call you on this stuff. So I think the best thing, you just brought up something funny. I should have a show where I just interview her and say, what do you think about me? And just let her be like, well, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm like, there you go. There's full transparency. Like, whatever I
Right.
wasn't giving you, she gave you all of it. So now we can start. And I would totally
That's
do
great.
that.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I actually I told both my sons I need to get them on here and let's go at it and say, hey, how do you think you were raised? Or
Yeah.
and what's beautiful about what you said is when my son, he got married recently, about 2 weeks
Congrats. I
ago.
saw the
Yeah,
pictures.
thank you.
There you go.
And yeah, a lot of Greek dancing going on too there. But what was really wild is some of the comments that were made, like at the rehearsal dinner or at the wedding. And it's really weird, Scott, when he said, now I realized all the things you did for me, and you did a lot, and you don't think about it that way as a parent, right? You just do it.
Yeah.
But like, you were at every one of my games, you helped me here with scouts, or you did this project. I mean, I just did it. So,
Yes.
but it's just wild. They do, I guess they do, through those
Immediately.
teenage years, they're getting it. It's just they're not giving it back to you like you, maybe we want to hear it, but they
Yeah.
get it. They get it.
Well,
And
they're in love with what you're doing for them, but they're also creating their, like, we have to watch that because they're creating their own independence and their platform for success. So we have to support that. And part of that is resisting us because they already know what we taught them. And Christ, I mean, they, like, can she hear Golo now one more time without being like, shut up?
right,
Seriously.
right,
So even though one of our coaches says it or an art instructor says it, here's the thing. A lot of brilliance comes in planting seeds, and the lesson isn't fully understood until it grows. So she might be 26, she might be 20, she might be 16. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We know that we put the right framework together and offered it to them, and they're getting it. And if we
right,
never get credit, who cares? Like, who
right,
cares? Tell
right,
me, tell
right.
me that other guy told you. I don't care.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, he'll say, "Yeah, Dad. Well, what did he tell you?" Well, some of the things that you told me. Like on the job. Now he's an accountant. He works at one of the big three firms. I'm not going to embarrass him and tell you who, but it's just really funny to watch how serious he is now. I mean, I'm laughing. I'm like, wow, he went from over here to look at this. He's married, and because I was kidding him, I said 23, 24. What was I doing? I won't get into what you were doing, but I know what I was doing. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I was terrorized by the thought of marriage. I was like, are
Oh
you
yeah.
kidding me? There ain't no way I'm doing this. I waited till I was 31. Uh,
It sounds horrifying. At 23, 24.
right.
Yeah, that's not even funny. No,
I won't tell him that. He's very mature now, and
that's good.
it's just fun to watch him. In fact, I'll see him on Christmas Eve. Yeah, it's them becoming independent. Yeah, excellent
Exactly
point,
right.
Ron. Hey, Ron is from your neck of the woods here. Originally you're from
Nice.
Peabody, Mass. So I know Ron is a big Celtics fan, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
could get into all that. And what is it that Jeffrey Gitomer always says, that Wilt set the standard? But I teased him and said yes, but Russell
Russell.
won the rings.
Yep.
Wilt set the standard, but Russell won the rings.
Yeah.
So we could get into that. But Scott, I just want to thank you for being here this evening. We're about up here, and I don't want to belabor this, but there is one thing I want to ask and share this with it. What does it mean today when you hear this word authentic, authenticity? What does that mean to us today? And now that you deal with kids, explain that to us.
Yeah. I might be a little, one of the words I always include in that is transparency.
Okay.
And I'm so over the top. Like, I really would bring my daughter and say everything you think about me. Like, I don't mind that gets out there because I love the concept of transparency and authenticity. So for me, there's a poem. I want everyone to go check it out. It's called "The Master in the Art of Living," and it's by I'm blanking on who wrote it. If you Google it or just go look up
Okay.
the image, you'll see it. And so it's essentially says the master in the art of living makes little distinction between play, work, practicing spirituality, anything they're doing. They have that same kind of consistent vibe. I think that the world doesn't want to allow us to be authentic because we have to play chameleon in all these roles. The second we can dive into that place where we can be fully authentic across the board and be the same person, that's when I think as a collective, we're really going to make it. And I'd probably lose opportunities. I'd probably screw up sometime because I'm overly authentic and I'm going to say exactly what I'm thinking when I'm thinking in any environment. But here's the thing. You can go rewind 10 years and look for consistency, and you're going to go, all right, well, he's done what he said. And so that's important to me. And I think that when people look back on your existence, and if you're really shining a light of your own brilliance, then consistency is the key. So authenticity comes with consistency. It comes with transparency. And I can't give you the exact amount of transparency that's good. I might go, that's a good question. I might go overboard, but I think you just got to be yourself. And being yourself includes the intrinsic rewards that we started with. Don't worry about everybody else saying that you're good enough. You got to fall in love with yourself. Be you. Don't let people know if you're working, playing, practicing spirituality. When you see me talking to you, to Chris, if you overheard me at Whole Foods, if I was on the basketball court, you should go, he's always the same person. He's always a pain in the butt. And it should be funny and silly everywhere you are. So,
Right. Hey, do you know this that Ron
Bobby,
Good
go
when
ahead.
she do you know him?
I
Do you know
do,
Bobby?
I do not, but is he, so was Bobby, so I do, Robert, my brother, my real dad, his brother's name was Robert. So it's very possible. Where, if he was in the Peabody area, now they grew up in Peabody and then he moved out to Western Mass. So I'm not sure. It's very possible. Very possible.
Right, right. Isn't this amazing? I mean, this is everybody's connected
Oh
somehow.
yeah.
But
So you got to be authentic and be careful because somebody
right,
knows you.
right. No, that's a great point, man.
Mm,
I'm always kind of worried, like, hey, did I ask the right question? When people see me in a sales role, hey, why do you do what you do? Someone asked me that, and when I started this, and this is just me, and I'm sharing this with everybody. They know, be a leader, be a friend, be a service. I'm not looking for a dime. I'm here to promote your platform, and
sure.
I have asked and challenged around Peachtree Corners. If you're in business, I will promote you to the nth degree, or your cause, because I think it's very important that we help one another. And
100%.
that's where I'm coming from. I can worry about making a penny or a dime later on, but tonight when I'm here doing this is about you and your message, and you're touching a lot of people out here. And I appreciate everybody being with us this evening. But Ron, in his infamous wisdom, is going to throw something else. Bob was from
Situate. Okay.
Situate. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yeah. Well, you got, if it's a Boston name, Wista, Situate, like we understand it. Yeah, don't worry.
And
Hey,
I
Serena,
know you know Serena, right? Because
she's great.
you and Chris, I have to say this. I kiddingly said it last night when I was promoting you. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I don't know who's who, but you complement one another so well. There's a flow
Yeah.
there. There's a vibe, and and I love Chris to death. I mean, I love his kick-ass approach, and then you come in with your approach, and it's just like infiltration, man. You become one, and it's just awesome to watch your show. A lot of times I don't want to say anything. I'm watching, but I'm just kind of like, wow, here's some deep thinking stuff. My wife will say, "What are you listening to?" I said, "Shh, shh. I'm getting educated, so chill out."
Yeah. Well,
But
you know what it is. You nailed it with the word authentic with Chris. I mean, he's a super authentic person. Like, there's not a dishonest bone in his body. He's just trying to do the best he can, and
yeah,
that's a cool thing to find in people.
and there's Serena. I love Chris and Scott.
She's just like that. I mean, you talk about authenticity. You're the same way. I mean, honestly, every person in this group, the coolest thing about the family that ends up following a lot of these shows, you start talking to these people, they're super authentic. Like when you ask that question, I'm sure a lot of them are like, it's all of us, because it is. So
Right, right. And that's what it's about to me, Scott. I learn
me
from
too.
you. I don't put myself up here. I've sold for a few years. I've done this, I've done that. It doesn't matter. I just want to be a student and try and work at mastering becoming a better person, becoming a better husband, becoming a better father, becoming a better coworker,
Yeah.
just invest in mankind. I said that's the best stock you can invest in. I know that sounds corny, but I truly believe that. And we
Mhm.
don't do it enough. We don't reach out to people. And when you do, it's kind of wild. Like today, I did have to Christmas shop last minute,
Mhm.
but I was in a line and it was long. And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm okay." Hey, you're doing a great job. You know that? Man, I bet you they love that you're back here doing what you're doing. Then he kind of smiled. I said, there it is. You're doing great, man. Keep it up. You know, I said,
We'd
no,
have a blast. I do this
I
all
know.
the
And then
time.
I'm looking behind me. I said, you guys aren't in a hurry, are you? I mean, what's the hurry, But people are,
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, I almost got run down in the parking lot. My goodness. But it's just crazy how, you know, we get so, I got to be here. I got to do this. And, we almost run over our own mom, to get there. I mean, it's crazy. But I can't help myself. Scott is my actual brother, and I think he's amazing.
That is my sister right there.
Yes.
She's up in Peabody, is how we actually say it. Peabody.
Oh,
If you
that's
live at
neat. That's
Peabody,
neat.
Mass. She's
That
also
is,
amazing.
you guys have a following, man, and all I can say is I'm gonna put you back in the green room real quick. I want to close this out and take about 2 or 3 minutes with you behind closed doors, so to speak, and pick your brain a little bit more. But
Well,
Scott, I truly want to thank you and your family for allowing you to join us on Mark's Message this time of year, because I know we all have things out there to take care of business and family and everything else. I know my wife's got a do list tomorrow that'll kill, and
all of
I'll
us.
be going through it like a maniac. I
Yeah.
think one even includes going to church. Look out! So
Do it all.
may have to talk to the priest and say, I'll do it virtually.
Uh, all right.
Listen, thank you again, and don't go anywhere. I'm going to close this out.
Love you, Mark. Love
All right,
everybody who's listening.
thank
You're
you,
appreciated.
thank you,
Thank you.
Scott. So there you have it, everybody. I mean, Scott Goyette, what a monster mash. There's a word for you. The guy is incredible. He is a deep thinker, and he's offering us solutions. And, what I love about, I can't wait to see what he's going to be doing once we get out of this craziness with that Go Love Now Foundation. I can see Scott. He is definitely a tremendous father. And I know his wife's probably watching this, or maybe she is or isn't. His sister hopped on here. They got to be proud of the guy. I mean, I wish I had guys like this as my teacher in high school, junior high. Can you imagine like having a teacher? What a cool person to have. I mean, this guy's totally relatable. And, he even was at one point in time a salesman. But we may have to get Scott on here to again, maybe get him and Chris on here and really go at it. We didn't solve all the problems of the universe, but with it being, well, I'll share that so Scott can see that. We are so proud. Thank you, Jessica Marie. Awesome. And Robert, thank you, Mark and Scott. Excellent, excellent. And yes, thank you for saying Merry Christmas, Jessica. And there he goes. Home run, Mark and Scott. Beautiful. And with that, on Mark's Message, this is the peachiest place on the planet. And I have to say, Scott may even kicked it up a notch to get a 6 peach rating after tonight's performance. I don't call it a presentation, it is a performance. And that's what we do because we're all performers out here in this big world of ours. And remember to be a leader, be a friend, be a service. Again, this was Mark's Message, Peachtree Corners, Georgia, the peachiest place on the planet. I want to thank everybody personally for joining us, for sharing it, for making your comments, and enjoy the holiday season. Have a joyous holiday season at that. Be safe, and we will see you again very soon. Thank you, one and all.